The issue of whether the Adani Carmichael coal mine goes ahead has become a major issue in the federal election. Now, a crucial meeting was held in April 2016 in the Queensland town of Maryborough, where traditional owners overwhelmingly voted 294 to 1 for the mine to go ahead.
Tonight, we're going to take a look at the significance of this meeting. This report was prepared by Carla Grant and producer Michael Carey.
This might well be the most discussed piece of land in Australia. To the Adani company, it looks like money. To the Wangan and Jagalingou people, it is sacred land.
Well, it's very important, obviously, because my great-grandparents on both sides of my family come from that country.
It's part of us. It's part of our culture, and our ancestors grew up on that land.
You belong to the land, you know, and you feel that connection to it.
The proposal to build a coal mine here on land near Dummabulla Springs in central Queensland has been a contentious issue in this federal election. But while the politicians are still arguing over the mine's future, it seems the traditional owners made up their minds 3 years ago. The decision on whether to mine on the lands of the Wangan and Jagalingou peoples was not made on their country. Instead, some traditional owners gathered 900 kilometres away from the mine site, here in the Fraser Coast city of Maryborough. The vote to give Adani the go-ahead to mine was almost unanimous, 294 to 1. But now questions are being raised about the integrity of the vote. Was the meeting stacked? Did people vote who weren't entitled to? And were opponents of the mine prevented from attending the meeting? Did you think it was value for money to hold that meeting?
Well, essentially what was important to us is that we followed the process right the way along, that effectively the traditional owners had their opportunity to be able to assess it and then vote on it, which, you know, I should also reinforce that it was voted in support of the Allure 294 to 1.
This is about our rights as the First Nation people.
What the Adani CEO didn't mention is that on 3 separate occasions before the April 2016 meeting, the Wangan and Jagalingou said no to the Adani deal. NITV went back to the site of the meeting with one of the 12 applicant group members who represent the W&J people.
I actually wanted to see if it got passed, but my feelings, I wasn't too happy about it. Like, the deal that they gave us was pitiful, and I was sort of hoping that people would vote against it.
Despite misgivings, Craig Dallin voted yes to support the Indigenous Land Use Agreement, or ILUA, struck with Adani Australia. But now he's having second thoughts.
I'd like to see Adani, come back and renegotiate the money that they've given us. Do I think they will? No, I don't feel good about it. Everything that happened, I've let my family down. I've let the Wangan and Jagalingou people down. I guess that we didn't do our job.
For Craig Dallin and Patrick Malone, the decision to vote yes to the mine was based on the belief a no vote would mean native title would be extinguished and they'd get nothing. That view was reinforced by their understanding of what Queensland's Super Public Servant Coordinator General Barry Bro had to say when they met in January 2016.
The way I understood the meeting was take the deal or we'll extinguish native title. He was very careful in how he said it. He didn't say it in that way, but that's the way I took it.
Yes, we weren't given any options.
We are not suggesting that Mr Bro did anything improper in this meeting, but the fact that these two men left it uncertain about their options is of real concern. Despite this fear that all could be lost, 5 out of the 12 families in the applicant group boycotted the vote.
They disrespect us, they disrespect our law, they disrespect our protocols, they disrespect our self-determination by trying to control our people, by buying people off and getting our people to fight against each other.
Even though many stayed away, according to an analysis of the minutes of the meeting, 341 people turned up in Maryborough, about 100 more than normal. In part, that could be explained because the mining company paid many to attend.
Honestly, I think it was like rent a crowd, you know, they just got people to get on and, you know, if you come down, you get paid. And why not? You get a free trip down, you get a motel, and then you go to a meeting, you get fed, and then you get paid.
The practice is legal and it's done to cover the costs of the meeting. The giant Indian corporation provided food, accommodation, sitting fees and transport costs for those who attended. Those whose job it was to give independent advice on the Adani deal and the native title organisation ensuring the meeting was correctly run were all on the mining company's tab. Even the security guards were paid by Adani Australia.
Essentially what we've applied is what is standard practice. So there was obviously oversight from Queensland South Native Title Services across all of these. In fact, the practices you've described are standard activities, and essentially it's to make sure that traditional owners aren't out of pocket for attending those sort of meetings.
Under the native title conditions, proponents have to pay to get people there.
How much were you paid?
Well, I got $2.5 grand, and I used some of that money to get my people there.
I got paid about $1,600 or $1,700 to come to the meeting.
With so much cash on offer, allegations soon surfaced about people just going for the money. This tweet, sent by Maddie Girabar Malone, "Only come meeting for money," was passed on to Wangan traditional owner Jasmine Broom.
It's a bit chunky. I didn't think it was really nice for them to be doing those sort of things, you know. Just come along for the money.
Are you aware of that tweet?
Yeah, I am. And they got into trouble from me for that. They're my nephews and my son, okay? And they were talking drunk and stupid, yeah. And I told them that they don't do that.
The promise to cover expenses seemed to work. Lawyers for those opposed to the mine researched previous attendance lists and found that 60% of those who went to Maryborough had never been to a W&J meeting before. For Colin Hardy, though, the high turnout raises serious questions about the validity of those who voted. So what steps were taken to ensure the people who were there were entitled to vote?
The steps that were taken were grossly inadequate. They didn't apply the proper claim group description. It's fundamental to the claim group description that those people have to identify as Wangan and Jagalingou people.
They didn't have anybody there checking your identification, whether who you were, saying who you were, and checking if you were from which clan you were from. They were just, it was open slather really, and anyone was just walking in and just signing away.
There was one case, however, where meeting organisers were scrupulous about who attended. Adrian BURRAGUBBA has led the campaign against the mine.
The real issue is that there was a standing order that was given to all the security that if Adrian BURRAGUBBA turned up there and his family, he wasn't permitted to enter. Now, if I had went there, if I had went straight into the place, then that would have given me grounds to have the thing struck out.
A security guard working on the day confirms they were given strict instructions to keep Adrian BURRAGUBBA out.
Basically, they didn't want us to let him into the meeting and disrupt the meeting, because I think the whole purpose of that meeting was to convince the Aboriginal people that was there that this was for good cause.
Adani CEO insists it was all done by the book.
I've got no idea what Mr BURRAGUBBA did or didn't do. What I can tell you is that we've complied with the requirements that are stipulated to be able to put an ILUI in place. We've met all those requirements. We've now got a registered ILUI in place with the Wangan and Jagalingou people.
Adani paid the independent native title organisation, Queensland South Native Title Services, $30,000 to both run the meeting and then certify it. For Colin Hardy, who was Principal Legal Officer for Queensland South, the whole process has been tainted.
If they're responsible for certifying that the meeting was being held in accordance with the requirements of the Act, then they should not have been involved in running the meeting.
Clearly, there are several major questions about the conduct of this crucial gathering. In August 2018, Justice John Reeves of the Federal Court decreed that the Indigenous Land Use Agreement was sound. But in 12 days' time, an appeal against the validity of the ILUA between the W&J people and Adani goes back to court.
We've drawn a line in the sand, and the fight has begun, and it hasn't finished yet, and it won't just finish in the full bench of the federal court. I mean, this will essentially have to go to the High Court. We will exhaust every single legal avenue in this country, and then we will go to the international community. We'll go to The Hague if we have to, because our rights are being denied in this country, and Australia's got to grow up, stop being childish about this. They've got to be a step with the rest of the world.